Bessie, a 14-year-old girl living in the small town of Akuri, found herself in a difficult situation. Despite repeated warnings from her parents, she had been secretly meeting her boyfriend. Her father's words echoed in her mind. "You're too young to have a boyfriend. Focus on being useful to yourself and leave boys alone for now." But Bessie, driven by curiosity and what she thought was love, continued to disobey. She would sneak out whenever she could, making excuses to her parents about studying at a friend's house or running errands. One day, after feeling unwell for weeks, Bessie realized she was pregnant. Her heart raced as she approached her boyfriend with the news. I think I'm pregnant," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Her boyfriend's face drained of color. "What? No, that's impossible. It can't be mine," he said, backing away from her. Bessie felt her world crumbling. "But you're the only one I've been with," she pleaded. "I don't care. I'm not ready for this. Don't tell anyone it's mine," he said coldly before walking away, leaving Bessie alone and scared. For weeks, Bessie struggled to keep her secret. She wore loose clothes and tried to act normal, but the fear of discovery consumed her. Every morning, she woke up dreading the moment her parents would find out. One night, as she lay in bed, she overheard her parents talking in the living room. "I'm worried about Bessie," her mother said. "She's been acting strange lately." "Maybe she's finally taking her studies seriously," her father replied. "It's about time she listened to us about focusing on her future." Bessie felt a pang of guilt. She knew her parents had high hopes for her, and now she had let them down in the worst way possible. The fear of disappointing her parents, coupled with the terror of becoming a mother at such a young age, overwhelmed her. She imagined the beating she might receive, the shame she would bring to her family, and the possibility of being kicked out of her home. "What am I going to do?" she whispered to herself, tears streaming down her face. For days, Bessie wrestled with her options. She considered telling her parents, hoping they might understand, but every time she tried to bring it up, her courage failed her. One afternoon, as she walked home from school, she passed by the bus station. She stopped, staring at the buses lined up, ready to take people to far-off places. An idea began to form in her mind. That night, Bessie lay awake, her mind racing. "I can't stay here," she thought. "I can't face them. I can't face anyone." The next morning, after her parents left for work, Bessie made her decision. With shaking hands, she packed a small bag with some clothes and the little money she had saved. As she stood in her room one last time, she looked around at the familiar surroundings. Her school books on the desk, photos of her friends on the wall, the teddy bear she'd had since childhood sitting on her bed. Everything reminded her of the life she was about to leave behind. Bessie scribbled a quick note. "I'm sorry. I love you. Please don't look for me." She left it on her bed, hoping it would buy her some time before they started searching. With a heavy heart, she slipped out of the house. As she walked towards the bus station, every step felt like lead. She kept looking over her shoulder, afraid someone might recognize her and stop her. At the bus station, Bessie approached the ticket counter. Her voice trembled as she spoke to the attendant. "One ticket, please. To wherever the next bus is going." The attendant looked at her curiously but didn't ask any questions. "Next bus is to Lagos. Leaves in 10 minutes. Bessie nodded, handing over most of her money for the ticket. As she waited for the bus, she thought about her parents coming home to find her gone. She imagined their worry, their anger, their disappointment. But in her mind, this was the only way. As the bus pulled up, Bessie took one last look at the town she had called home for 14 years. Tears welled up in her eyes as she boarded, knowing she was leaving behind everything and everyone she knew. The bus lurched forward, and Bessie watched through the window as a curé faded into the distance. She placed a hand on her stomach, feeling the weight of her decision and the uncertainty of her future. "I'm sorry," she whispered to her parents, to her unborn child, and to herself. As the bus sped towards Lagos, Bessie closed her eyes, hoping that somehow, somewhere, she would find a way to make things right. After several hours of driving, the bus finally came to a stop at a bustling park in Lagos. Bessie stepped off the bus, her legs wobbly from the long journey. She stared wide-eyed at her new surroundings, overwhelmed by the noise, the crowds, and the towering buildings. This was nothing like her small town in Akure. Where am I supposed to go now? Bessie muttered to herself, clutching her small bag tightly. She had spent her last naira on the bus ticket, leaving her with no money and no idea where to go. The reality of her situation began to sink in. She was alone, pregnant, and lost in a big city she knew nothing about. As the sun began to set, Bessie wandered the streets of Lagos. Her stomach growled with hunger, reminding her that she hadn't eaten since morning. She passed by food vendors, the aroma of their wares making her mouth water, but she had no money to buy anything. "Excuse me," she tried asking a passerby. "Do you know where I can find a cheap place to stay?" The person barely glanced at her before hurrying away, leaving Bessie feeling even more alone. As darkness fell, Bessie's fear grew. She had nowhere to sleep, and the streets were becoming more intimidating by the minute. She kept walking, her feet aching, hoping to find somewhere safe to rest. In a quieter part of the city, Bessie spotted an elderly woman locking up what looked like a small shop. Desperate for help, she approached the woman. "Good evening, Ma," Bessie said, her voice trembling. "Please, I'm new in this place and I'm lost. I can't find my way. Could you please let me sleep at your house until tomorrow? Please help me." The elderly woman looked at Bessie with surprise and suspicion. "What do you mean you're lost? What are you doing on the street at this time of night? Where are your parents?" she asked, her voice sharp with concern and a hint of accusation. Bessie, feeling cornered and desperate, decided to tell the truth. I ran away from home," she admitted, her eyes welling up with tears. "I'm pregnant, and I was afraid to tell my parents. I have nowhere to go." The woman's expression changed from surprise to disappointment. "You got pregnant? As young as you are? You're already pregnant? You must be a stubborn girl," she said, shaking her head. "Now go away from me, I can't help you." Bessie felt her heart sink. She had hoped the woman would take pity on her, but instead she found herself being chased away once again. With tears streaming down her face, she walked away, feeling more alone than ever. As she continued her aimless wandering, exhaustion began to take over. Bessie found a large tree in a quiet area and sat down, leaning against its trunk. Her eyelids felt heavy, and she was just about to drift off when she heard footsteps approaching. Bessie's eyes snapped open, and she saw a group of young men walking towards her. Their loud voices and aggressive body language made her heart race with fear. Without thinking, she jumped to her feet and started running. "Hey, where are you going?" one of the boys shouted, and to Bessie's horror, she heard them start to chase her. Her pregnant body protested as she ran as fast as she could, her breath coming in short gasps. "Please, God, help me," she prayed silently as she darted down unfamiliar streets, trying to lose her pursuers. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, Bessie could no longer hear the boys behind her. She slowed down, her lungs burning and her legs shaking. She found herself in a quiet, partially developed area of the city. As she caught her breath, Bessie's thoughts turned to her family back in Akure. She imagined her mother discovering her empty room, the note she had left. She could almost hear her father's angry voice, her mother's sobs. The guilt and homesickness washed over her. "I'm sorry, Mama. I'm sorry, Papa," she whispered into the night, tears falling freely now. As she walked through the quiet area, Bessie spotted an unfinished building. It was just a concrete shell with no windows or doors, but it offered some shelter from the elements and prying eyes. Cautiously, she approached the structure. "Hello?" she called out softly, making sure no one else was using it as a shelter. When she received no response, she stepped inside. The floor was hard and dusty, but to Bessie's exhausted body, it felt like a luxury. She found a corner that was partially hidden from view of the entrance and settled down, using her small bag as a pillow. As she lay there, trying to get comfortable, Bessie placed a hand on her stomach. "I'm sorry, little one," she whispered to her unborn child. "I don't know what we're going to do, but I'll figure something out, I promise." The night was long and uncomfortable. Every sound made Bessie jump, fearing that someone had found her hiding place. But as the first light of dawn began to filter into the unfinished building, she realized she had made it through her first night in Lagos. Sitting up and stretching her sore muscles, Bessie looked around her makeshift shelter. It wasn't much, but for now, it was the only place she had. "I guess this is home now," she said to herself, her voice a mixture of resignation and determination. As the city outside began to wake up, Bessie steeled herself for the challenges ahead. She had no money, no food, and no plan. But she was alive, and for now, that had to be enough. With a deep breath, she stepped out of the building, ready to face her first full day in this strange, overwhelming city. As time passed, Bessie's pregnancy progressed rapidly. Life in Lagos was incredibly hard for her. Each day was a struggle to find food and stay safe. She often resorted to begging on the streets, approaching strangers with pleading eyes. "Please, can you spare some food?" she would ask passers-by. Some ignored her, while others gave her small portions or a few naira. To earn a little money, Bessie started washing clothes for people in the neighborhood. "I can wash your clothes for you?" she'd offer to women she saw in the area. "I'll do a good job, I promise." One woman, Mrs. Ao, became a regular client. "You're a hard worker, Bessie," she'd say, handing over a small payment. "But you shouldn't be doing this in your condition." Bessie would just nod, grateful for the work. "Thank you, Ma. I have no choice." Months went by like this, with Bessie barely scraping by. Then, one evening, as she sat in her makeshift home in the unfinished building, she felt a sharp pain. "Oh no," she gasped, realizing what was happening. "Not now. Please, not now." But the baby was coming, and Bessie was all alone. She screamed in pain, her cries echoing in the empty structure. "Help! Somebody help me!" she yelled, but no one was around to hear. For hours, Bessie pushed and cried, the pain unlike anything she had ever experienced. "I can't do this," she sobbed, but her body kept working to bring the baby into the world. Finally, with one last agonizing push, the baby was born. Bessie, exhausted and in shock, stared at the tiny crying infant. "Hello, little one," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. With shaking hands, she cleaned the baby as best she could, using the cleanest cloth she had. As she held her child, a boy, Bessie was filled with a mix of love and despair. She knew she couldn't provide for him. She had no money, no home, no way to keep him healthy and safe. "What am I going to do with you?" she asked the baby, who had quieted and was looking up at her with unfocused eyes. "I want to keep you, but I can't. I'm so sorry." Bessie spent the night holding her son, trying to feed him and keep him warm, but as the sun rose, she knew she had to make a difficult decision. She couldn't keep the baby with her. It would be a death sentence for both of them. An idea formed in her mind, a way to give her son a chance at life. It broke her heart, but she knew it was the only way. "I have to be strong," she told herself. "For you, my little one, for you." She looked into his tiny face, her heart heavy with the decision she was about to make. Tears streaming down her cheeks, she spoke softly to him. "My sweet baby," Bessie whispered, her voice trembling. "Please forgive me for what I'm about to do. I know you won't understand, but I'm so sorry. This is the only way I can give you a chance at a better life. I want you to know that I love you so much." The baby cooed softly, unaware of his mother's turmoil. Bessie hugged him tightly, trying to memorize every detail of his tiny face. With shaking hands, Bessie wrapped the baby in the cleanest cloth she had. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what she was about to do. "It's time," she murmured, more to herself than to the baby. Bessie stepped out of her shelter, holding her son close. She walked to the next street, where she knew a wealthy family lived. Their large house stood out among the other buildings, a symbol of prosperity that Bessie could only dream of. As she approached the billionaire's house, doubt crept into her mind. "What if this doesn't work?" she thought. "What if they don't find him?" But she knew she had to try. It was her son's only chance at a good life. With a final kiss on her baby's forehead, Bessie gently placed him near the gate of the mansion. She arranged the cloth to make sure he was comfortable and visible. "Be safe, my love," she whispered, before quickly moving away to hide behind a nearby tree. From her hiding spot, Bessie watched the gate intently. Minutes passed, feeling like hours to the anxious mother. Finally, the gate opened. Bessie held her breath as she saw a well-dressed couple step out. It was the billionaire and his wife. The couple stopped abruptly, their eyes landing on the bundle near their feet. "What's this?" the man asked, bending down to look closer. His wife gasped. It's a baby. Oh my goodness, how did it get here?" They looked around, searching for any sign of who might have left the child. Bessie pressed herself against the tree, her heart pounding. "We can't leave it out here," the woman said, carefully picking up the baby. "Let's take him inside and figure out what to do." The couple retreated into their house, carrying Bessie's son with them. Bessie watched them go, her emotions a mix of relief and heartbreak. She slid down the tree trunk, sobbing quietly. "Be good to him," she pleaded silently to the wealthy couple. "Give him the life I can't." With a heavy heart, Bessie stood up and walked away from the billionaire's house. She knew she had made the right decision for her baby, but it didn't make the pain any easier to bear. As she made her way back to her shelter, Bessie whispered a final goodbye to her son. "I hope you have a wonderful life, my dear. Maybe someday, somehow, we'll meet again." Inside their luxurious home, Mr. Olu and his wife Lola carefully carried the baby to their bedroom. They placed the infant on their large bed, both staring at the tiny bundle in disbelief. "What do we do now, Olu?" Lola asked, her voice filled with a mix of concern and excitement. Mr. Olu ran his hand through his hair, looking just as bewildered. I'm not sure. We should probably call the police, report this." Lola gently touched the baby's cheek, her eyes filling with tears. "But look at him, Olu. He's so small, so helpless." The couple exchanged a meaningful look. They had been trying to have a child for years, spending fortunes on fertility treatments, all to no avail. The pain of their inability to conceive had been a constant shadow over their otherwise successful lives. Mr. Olu sat down heavily on the edge of the bed. "You know, Lola, maybe this isn't a coincidence. We've prayed for a child for so long." Lola nodded, hope blooming in her chest. "Do you think? Could this be our miracle?" Mr. Olu reached out and took his wife's hand. "Maybe it is. Maybe this is the gift we've been waiting for all these years." They both looked at the baby, who was now sleeping peacefully, unaware of the life-changing decision being made around him. "We could give him a wonderful life," Lola said softly. "Everything we've always wanted to give to our child." Mr. Olu nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "You're right. We shall keep the baby. This is our chance to be parents, Lola." Tears of joy streamed down Lola's face as she carefully picked up the baby. "Hello, little one. We're your new mom and dad." Mr. Olu wrapped his arms around his wife and their new son. "We need to give him a name. What do you think?" Lola thought for a moment. "How about Tunde? It means returns or comes back. Like he has returned joy to our lives." "Tunde," Mr. Olu repeated, testing the name. "I like it. Welcome to the family, Tunde." As the reality of their sudden parenthood sank in, Mr. Olu's practical side kicked in. "You know, Lola, with our busy schedules, we might need some help. Maybe we should hire a nanny to watch over Tunde when we're at work." Lola nodded in agreement. "That's a good idea. We want to give Tunde all the care and attention he needs. I'll start looking for someone right away." "We'll find the perfect person to help us take care of our son," Mr. Olu said. As they continued to marvel at their unexpected blessing, neither Mr. Olu nor Lola could have imagined the true story behind Tunde's arrival or the challenges that lay ahead in their new journey as parents. Bessie couldn't shake off the guilt and worry about her decision to leave her baby at the billionaire's mansion. She spent her days and nights walking around the property, her mind filled with questions and doubts. "Did I make the right choice?" she would mutter to herself, staring at the grand gates. "Is my baby okay in there?" One evening, as she paced near the mansion, a security guard approached her. "Miss, are you lost? You've been here for hours," he said. Bessie jumped, startled. "No, I'm just walking," she stammered. The guard looked at her suspiciously. "This isn't a public park. You can't stay here." Bessie nodded and walked away, her heart heavy. She found a nearby bench and sat down, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry, my baby," she whispered. "I hope you're happy in there." Sleep became a luxury for Bessie. Every night she tossed and turned in her makeshift shelter, her mind racing with thoughts of her child. Is he being cared for? Does he miss me? She would ask the darkness, receiving no answer. One day, as Bessie walked her usual route around the mansion, something caught her eye. A notice was posted on the wall, "Nanny needed." Her heart raced as she read it. "This is it," she whispered to herself. "This could be my chance to see my baby again." Bessie stood there, staring at the notice, her mind racing. She knew it was risky. What if they recognized her? What if she couldn't handle being so close to her child without revealing the truth? She paced back and forth, talking to herself. Should I do this? Can I even pull it off? After hours of internal debate, Bessie made her decision. "I have to try," she said firmly. "I need to know he's okay." The next day, Bessie cleaned herself up as best she could and went to apply for the job. She rehearsed her story over and over. "Good morning," she said nervously to the woman at the gate. "I'm here about the nanny position." To Bessie's surprise, she was ushered in immediately. She found herself sitting across from Mr. Olu and his wife. "So, Bessie, tell us about your experience with children," Mr. Olu said. Bessie took a deep breath. "I love children," she said, thinking of her baby. "I've helped raise my younger siblings and cousins." Lola smiled. "That's wonderful. How do you handle difficult situations with children?" "With patience and understanding," Bessie replied, her voice steadier now. The interview continued, and to Bessie's shock, it ended with Mr. Olu saying, "Well, Bessie, we'd like to offer you the position. Can you start tomorrow?" Bessie nodded, barely able to speak. As she left the mansion, a mix of excitement and fear filled her. She was going to see her baby again. But at what cost? Bessie started her job as a nanny in the billionaire's household, her heart racing every time she saw Tunde. She had to remind herself constantly not to show too much emotion. "Good morning, Tunde," she'd say softly each day, fighting the urge to scoop him up and never let go. Lola noticed Bessie's gentle way with the baby. "You're so good with him, Bessie," she said one day. "He really seems to like you." Bessie smiled nervously. "Thank you, Ma. He's a wonderful baby." When the family was out, Bessie would hold Tunde close, whispering to him, "My sweet boy, I'm your mama. I wish I could tell you." She'd breastfeed him during these times, cherishing the bond. "This is our secret, okay?" she'd say, tears in her eyes. As weeks passed, Tunde began to show a strong preference for Bessie. He'd cry when she left the room and calm instantly in her arms. Mr. Olu commented on it one evening. "It's amazing how attached Tunde is to you, Bessie. You must have a special touch." "Oh, I just try my best, sir," Bessie replied, her heart pounding. Lola added, "We're so lucky to have found you. Tunde clearly loves you." Bessie nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She was grateful for this time with her son, but the secret was becoming harder to bear each day. That night, as she put Tunde to bed, she whispered, "I love you so much, my little one, more than you'll ever know." One sunny afternoon, Mr. Olu and Lola were sitting on their patio, enjoying the pleasant weather. They watched as Bessie played with Tunde on a blanket spread out on the lawn. Lola turned to her husband, a slight frown on her face. "Honey, I don't know, but have you noticed how attached that nanny is to Tunde?" Mr. Olu nodded, his eyes focused on Bessie and the baby. "I was just about to mention that, my darling. We hired her to watch over Tunde, but she seems almost too attached to him. It's a bit unusual, don't you think?" They watched as Bessie tickled Tunde, making him giggle loudly. The sound of the baby's laughter filled the air. "Look at how she looks at him," Mr. Olu continued. "It's almost like, well, I don't know. I hope everything is all right with her." Lola sighed, her expression softening. "Maybe we're overthinking this. She could just be a very dedicated nanny. Some people are naturally good with children." "That's true," Mr. Olu agreed, but he still looked concerned. "But don't you find it odd how quickly Tunde bonded with her? He cries whenever she's not around." Lola reached out and patted her husband's hand. "I understand your concerns, but let's not worry too much about it. She's taking excellent care of Tunde, and that's what matters most." They fell silent for a moment, watching as Bessie gently rocked Tunde, who was starting to look sleepy. "You're right," Mr. Olu finally said. "She's probably just trying to be a loving nanny. As long as Tunde is happy and well cared for, we shouldn't complain." Lola nodded, smiling as she saw Tunde yawn in Bessie's arms. "Exactly," Let's be grateful we found someone who cares for our son so deeply. Bessie was tidying up Tunde's toys in the garden when she noticed Mr. Olu and Lola talking on the patio. She couldn't hear their words clearly, but their frequent glances in her direction made her uneasy. Pretending to be busy, she moved closer, straining to catch their conversation. As she picked up a stuffed animal, she heard Lola's voice. "That Nanny so much attached to Tunde." Bessie's heart raced. She bent down, feigning to tie her shoelace, listening intently. Mr. Olu's response made her blood run cold. "Too attached to the baby? Oh no," Bessie thought, her hands shaking slightly as she placed the toy in the basket. She caught more snippets of their conversation, each word increasing her panic. As the couple's discussion ended, Bessie straightened up, her mind racing. "I have to be more careful," she whispered to herself. "They're getting suspicious. I need to watch my steps." She took a deep breath, forcing a calm expression as she turned towards the house, all the while thinking, "I can't lose this chance to be with my baby. I have to be smarter about this." For 10 long years, Bessie lived a double life in the billionaire's household. Every day was a delicate balance of caring for Tunde while hiding her true identity. She poured all her love into her son, savoring every moment they shared. "Tunde, have you finished your homework?" Bessie would ask, her voice gentle but firm. "Almost done, Nanny Bessie," the boy would reply, his face lighting up at her attention. As Tunde grew, Bessie marveled at his progress. She'd watch him learn to walk, talk, and eventually excel in his studies. Each milestone filled her with a bittersweet mix of pride and sadness. One evening, as she tucked him into bed, 9-year-old Tunde asked, "Nanny Bessie, why do you always look sad when you think I'm not watching?" Bessie's heart skipped a beat. "Oh, Tunde, I'm not sad. I'm just thinking sometimes," she replied, forcing a smile. "Nanny, can I tell you a secret?" 9-year-old Tunde whispered one day. Bessie's heart raced. "Of course, Tunde. You can tell me anything. You're my favorite person in the whole world," he said, hugging her tightly. Bessie fought back tears. "Oh, Tunde, you're very special to me, too." Mr. Olu often boasted about Tunde's achievements. "Did you see Tunde's latest test scores?" he'd say to Lola. "He's at the top of his class again." "He's such a smart boy," Lola would agree, beaming with pride. Bessie would listen to these conversations, her heart swelling with pride but aching with the secret she carried. She'd think to herself, "That's my boy, my brilliant, beautiful boy." During quiet moments, Bessie would sometimes allow herself to imagine a different life. What if I had kept him? She'd wonder, but then she'd look around at the luxurious home, the opportunities Tunde had, and remind herself why she made her choice. "Nanny Bessie, can you help me with this math problem?" Tunde would call, snapping her out of her thoughts. "Of course, Tunde," she'd respond, grateful for another chance to be close to her son. "Let's figure it out together." One afternoon, 9-year-old Tunde was playing in the sitting room, running around with his toy airplane. As he zoomed past the ornate glass table, his elbow caught the edge of a delicate glass ornament. It toppled off the table and shattered on the marble floor with a loud crash. Tunde froze, his eyes wide with fear. "Oh no," he whispered. The sound of breaking glass echoed through the house. Within seconds, Lola, Tunde's adoptive mother, rushed into the room. Her eyes darted from the broken glass to Tunde, who was standing stock still next to the table. "Wait, what?" Lola exclaimed. Her face turned red with anger. "Tunde, you broke that glass on the table. I've told you so many times not to play near that table." Before Tunde could explain or apologize, Lola grabbed him by the arm and started spanking him. "How many times do I have to tell you? That glass was expensive." Bessie, who had been in the kitchen, ran into the room when she heard the commotion. Her heart broke as she watched Lola punishing Tunde. It took every ounce of self-control not to intervene. She clenched her fists, fighting the urge to protect her son. After the beating, Tunde ran to his room, sobbing. Lola, still fuming, stormed back to her own room without a word to Bessie. Bessie waited a few minutes, then quietly knocked on Tunde's door. "Tunde, can I come in?" A muffled yes came from inside. Bessie entered to find Tunde curled up on his bed, his face streaked with tears. She sat down beside him and gently stroked his back. I know you're sad now, Tunde, Bessie said softly. What happened was an accident. Next time, if you want to play, just come outside with me, okay? I'm always here for you. Tunde looked up at her, his eyes red and puffy. I didn't mean to break it, he sniffled. I was just playing. I know, sweetheart, Bessie soothed. Accidents happen. Tunde sat up and threw his arms around Bessie. I just wish you were my mother, he cried. I love you so much. Bessie felt her heart shatter. Tears welled up in her eyes as she hugged Tunde tightly. If only he knew the truth. Please stop crying, Tunde said, noticing Bessie's tears. Did I say something wrong? I wish my mom was like you. Bessie quickly wiped her eyes. No, you didn't say anything wrong, she assured him. Don't worry about your mother, Tunde. She's not a bad person. She was just angry because that glass was expensive. She loves you very much. But you never get angry like that, Tunde pointed out. Bessie sighed. Everyone shows love differently, Tunde. Your mother loves you in her own way. After comforting Tunde for a while longer, Bessie left his room. As she closed the door, she heard Tunde whisper, I wish my mother was just like my nanny. Bessie leaned against the wall outside Tunde's room, her emotions overwhelming her. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on her. She was Tunde's real mother, yet she couldn't tell him. She had to watch another woman raise her son, sometimes in ways she didn't agree with, and there was nothing she could do about it. Oh, Tunde, she whispered to herself. If only you knew how much I love you. After comforting Tunde, Bessie retreated to her small room in the servants' quarters. As soon as she closed the door, she broke down in tears. My baby, she sobbed quietly, sinking onto her bed. Oh, Tunde, if only you knew. Bessie's mind raced with Tunde's words. I wish you were my mother. The irony of it all was too much to bear. I am your mother, she whispered to the empty room. I've always been your mother. As her tears subsided, a dangerous thought began to form in Bessie's mind. Maybe I should tell him the truth, she muttered. Maybe we could leave this place together. But fear quickly set in. No, it's too risky, she argued with herself. What if they don't believe me? What if they take Tunde away? Bessie paced her small room, torn between her desire to claim her son and the reality of their situation. There has to be a way, she said. I just need to find it. After that emotional day, Bessie couldn't shake the idea of revealing the truth to Tunde. She spent nights tossing and turning, imagining different scenarios. I could just tell him outright, she mumbled to herself one night. But no, he's so young. He might not understand. During the day, she watched Tunde closely, noticing his growing sadness. One afternoon, she found him staring out the window instead of doing his homework. Tunde, sweetie, aren't you supposed to be studying? She asked gently. Tunde sighed. What's the point? Mom and Dad are never around to see my grades anyway. Bessie's heart ached. They're just busy with work, Tunde. They still care about you. But you're always here, Tunde said, looking at her with sad eyes. Why can't they be more like you? Bessie swallowed hard, fighting back tears. Everyone has different responsibilities, Tunde. Your parents love you very much. As Tunde turned back to the window, Bessie thought, oh, my sweet boy. If only I could tell you the whole truth. Days later, Tunde's life had turned into a nightmare. Once known throughout the school for his intelligence and academic prowess, the popular and brilliant boy now found himself struggling. His grades had plummeted dramatically, dropping from first place to third from last in his class. At home, the situation was equally dire. His father would bellow at him, his face red with anger. What's wrong with you, Tunde? How could you let your grades slip like this? He'd shout, waving Tunde's report card in the air. His mother was no better. She'd yell and call him names, her words cutting deep. Are you trying to embarrass us? You used to be so smart. What happened to our brilliant son? She'd say, her voice dripping with disappointment. Neither of them seemed to care about what might be troubling their only child. They didn't take the time to sit down with Tunde to ask him if something was wrong or if he needed help. Their busy schedules and high expectations left no room for understanding or compassion. The constant criticism and lack of support at home took its toll on Tunde. He became lost in his thoughts, his mind a whirlpool of sadness and confusion. This internal turmoil directly impacted his academic performance, leading to a breakdown in his studies. At school, his teachers noticed the change. Mrs. Ada, his English teacher, approached him one day after class. "Tunde, is everything all right? You seem very distracted lately," she asked gently. Tunde just shrugged, avoiding eye contact. "I'm fine," he mumbled, even though he was far from it. Mr. Deo, his math teacher, also tried to reach out. "Tunde, your grades have dropped significantly. Is there something bothering you? You can talk to me if you need help," he offered. But Tunde wouldn't open up to them. He'd simply shake his head and walk away, leaving his concerned teachers at a loss. The only person Tunde felt he could turn to was Bessie. One evening, as she was helping him with his homework, he finally broke down. "Nanny Bessie," he said, his voice quivering, "I don't know what to do anymore. Nothing I do seems good enough for Mom and Dad." Bessie's heart ached as she listened to her son's pain. "Oh, Tunde," she said softly, putting an arm around his shoulders. "What makes you feel that way?" Tunde's words came out in a rush. "They're always yelling at me about my grades. They don't care about anything else. They don't even ask how I'm feeling or if something's wrong. It's like they only love me when I'm perfect." Bessie fought back tears as she hugged Tunde close. "Your parents love you very much, Tunde. They just have a hard time showing it sometimes. But I'm here for you, always. You can tell me anything, okay?" Tunde nodded, burying his face in Bessie's shoulder. In that moment, Bessie wished more than ever that she could tell Tunde the truth, that she was his real mother and that she loved him unconditionally. But for now, all she could do was hold him and offer what comfort she could. Tunde's academic performance had been suffering due to his worries about his parents' busy schedules and their seeming lack of interest in his life. Once a top student, he had slipped to the middle of his class. However, with Bessie's constant support and encouragement, Tunde started to regain his focus on his studies. One day after class, Tunde's teacher, Mrs. Ada, called out to him. "Tunde, can I speak with you for a moment?" Tunde turned back, a bit nervous. "Yes, Mrs. Ada?" Mrs. Ada smiled warmly. "Tunde, I've noticed a significant improvement in your academic performance lately. Your grades have shot up and you're participating more in class discussions. I'm really impressed with the new Tunde I'm seeing." Tunde beamed with pride. "Thank you, Mrs. Ada. I've been trying harder." "Well, your efforts haven't gone unnoticed," Mrs. Ada continued. "In fact, I've spoken with the school principal about you. We would like you to represent our school in the upcoming national competition. It's a contest between 2 different schools across Nigeria." Tunde's eyes widened in surprise and excitement. "Really? Me?" Mrs. Ada nodded. "Yes, you. We believe you have the potential to do very well." Tunde couldn't contain his excitement. "Thank you so much, Mrs. Ada. I promise I'll do my best. I want to put our school on the map as one of the best schools, not just in Nigeria, but in all of Africa." Mrs. Ada's face lit up with delight at Tunde's enthusiasm. "That's the spirit, Tunde. Your newfound wisdom and dedication are truly impressive. Keep up the great work, and I'm sure you'll make us all proud." As Tunde left the classroom, he couldn't wait to share the news with Bessie. He found her in the kitchen preparing dinner. Nanny Bessie, he called out excitedly. "You won't believe what happened today." Bessie turned to him, smiling at his enthusiasm. "What is it, Tunde?" "Mrs. Ada said I'm going to represent our school in a big competition. It's against 2 other schools in Nigeria," Tunde exclaimed. Bessie's face beamed with pride. "Oh, Tunde, that's wonderful news. I'm so proud of you." Tunde hugged Bessie tightly. "It's all thanks to you, Nanny. You always listen to me and encourage me. You make me want to do better." Bessie felt tears welling up in her eyes as she hugged her son back. "You did all the hard work, Tunde. You should be very proud of yourself." As they celebrated Tunde's achievement, Bessie couldn't help but feel a mix of joy and sadness. She was immensely proud of her son, but she wished she could share this moment with him as his mother, not just his nanny. The school competition arrived quickly, and Tunde put his whole heart into representing his school. He had spent weeks preparing. staying up late to study and practice. On the day of the competition, Tunde felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as he stood on the stage. "You can do this, Tunde," he whispered to himself, taking a deep breath before starting his presentation. His hard work paid off. Tunde's performance was outstanding, impressing both the judges and the audience. When the results were announced, Tunde's school was declared the winner, recognized as one of the best schools in the area. And the winner is Tunde from King's Academy. The announcer's voice boomed through the speakers. The entire auditorium erupted in cheers. Tunde's classmates rushed to congratulate him, patting him on the back and shouting words of praise. "You did it, Tunde," his best friend Wale exclaimed. "You were amazing up there." Tunde's exceptional showing caught the attention of government officials present at the event. The governor, impressed by Tunde's brilliance and bravery, made a decision on the spot. "This young man represents the best of our state," the governor announced. "I'm proud to award Tunde a prize of 20 million naira for his outstanding performance." The crowd gasped at the amount. Tunde stood there, stunned, unable to believe what he had just heard. Later that day, the school principal called Tunde to his office. He handed Tunde a letter, his face beaming with pride. "Tunde, make sure you give this to your parents," the principal said, his voice filled with excitement. "You're such a brilliant kid. The governor of our state has confirmed a cash prize of 20 million naira for you. Your parents will receive it next week." Tunde took the letter with shaking hands. "Thank you, sir," he managed to say, still in shock from the day's events. When Tunde got home, he found Lola sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. He approached her, his heart pounding with excitement to share the news. "Good afternoon, Mom," Tunde greeted, trying to keep his voice steady. Lola looked up from her phone. "Oh, my baby boy. How are you doing? How's school? I hope you didn't get into trouble with anyone," she asked, her tone more distracted than concerned. "I heard your mother screaming, Tunde. What's the good news?" Bessie asked, her voice filled with concern and interest. Tunde looked up at Bessie, feeling a sense of comfort in her presence. "My teacher gave me a prize for my parents," he explained. "She told me I won it for performing well at the school competition." Bessie's eyes lit up with pride. "This is great, I trust you. Now tell me exactly what this prize is," she urged, sitting down next to Tunde on the bed. Tunde took a deep breath before answering. "My teacher told me I won a prize of 20 million naira, sponsored by the governor of our state," he revealed, still hardly believing it himself. Bessie's jaw dropped. She almost fainted upon hearing the amount. "What a huge prize," she whispered, more to herself than to Tunde. Unable to control her emotions, Bessie quickly stood up. That's wonderful, Tunde. You deserve it," she said hastily, before leaving the room and retreating to her own quarters. Sitting alone in her small room, Bessie's mind raced. Tunde won a prize of 20 million naira. "My son," she thought, her heart swelling with pride and pain. "So this billionaire family is going to get all that money won by my son. That's impossible. This is the time to fight and get what is mine," she said quietly to herself. The idea of revealing her true identity as Tunde's real mother consumed her thoughts. She paced back and forth in the small space, weighing the pros and cons. "It's going to be hard," she muttered. "But with that prize money, our lives could change forever. We could have a fresh start, just Tunde and me." Bessie stopped pacing, her resolve hardening. "Whatever happens, I shall get Tunde back as my son. I'm his real mother. I carried him for 9 months, she declared to the empty room. Taking a deep breath, Bessie left her room and walked back to Tunde's door. Her hands were shaking as she knocked softly. "Come in," Tunde's voice called out. Bessie entered the room, her heart pounding. Tunde was sitting at his desk, working on some homework. "Nanny, is something wrong? Why do you look so scared?" Tunde asked, noticing her distress. Bessie stood there, frozen. The words she had rehearsed in her mind refused to come out. The more she tried to speak, the more frightened she became. "Tunde," she finally managed to say, her voice trembling. "Please, there's something I want to tell you." Tunde put down his pen and turned to face Bessie fully, concern etched on his young face. "What is it, Nanny? You can tell me anything," he said, his voice full of trust and affection. Bessie took a deep breath, knowing that what she was about to say would change everything. The truth that she had kept hidden for so long was about to come out, and there was no going back. If you're eager to see how this story unfolds, please subscribe and let us know in the comments below.
Please tell me, are you enjoying the story? If so, tell me what lessons have you actually learned? I would really love to hear your comments in the comment section down below. And remember to support this channel, please subscribe, like the video, comment, just say something, even a word could literally mean a whole lot. So I want you to tell me what lessons have you learned from this story. Trust me, these are situations that most people actually go through. I'm sure some of you that are watching this story have actually gone through this situation. So I want to hear from you. I want to hear how you dealt with the situation that you were faced with.
Tunde. Bessie's voice trembled as she spoke. Her hands shook slightly as she approached the boy. There's something important I need to tell you. Please don't be angry with me. I've kept this secret for a long time and I'm sorry. Tunde looked up from his homework, confusion clear on his face. He stood up and walked towards Bessie, concern in his eyes. Nanny Bessie, what's wrong? What secret are you talking about? Bessie took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. Tunde, this isn't easy to say. I'm your real mother. You're my son. Tears began to roll down Bessie's cheeks as she watched Tunde's face change from confusion to disbelief. The room fell silent. The only sound was Bessie's quiet sobs. Tunde stumbled backward, shaking his head. No, that's not possible. You can't be my mother. You're my nanny. I know it's hard to believe, Tunde, Bessie said softly, reaching out towards him. But it's the truth. When you were born, I had no choice. I left you at the billionaire's gates so you could have a better life. I couldn't provide for you then. Tunde's mind was reeling. He couldn't process what he was hearing. If you're really my mother, why did you keep it a secret all this time? Why didn't you tell me? Bessie wiped her tears, trying to compose herself. I had to keep it a secret to protect you, to make sure you had a good life. But things are different now. We could leave together, start a new life. Tunde stood there, silent and stunned. His nanny, the woman who had cared for him for years, was claiming to be his mother. It seemed impossible. Tunde, Bessie continued, her voice urgent. You won that prize money, 20 million naira. We could use that to build a new life together, just the two of us. But Tunde wasn't ready to accept this revelation. No, I'm not going anywhere. How do I know you're telling the truth? How can I believe you're really my mother? Bessie pleaded with him, her voice filled with desperation. Tunde, please, we don't have much time. We need to leave before it's too late. We can go to your school, claim the prize money, and start over. As Bessie continued to explain, sharing details from the past, Tunde began to see the truth in her words. The love she had always shown him, the special bond they shared, it all started to make sense. But even as he began to accept that Bessie might truly be his mother, a new worry formed in his mind. But how can we leave? Tunde asked, his voice barely above a whisper. How can we escape from here? They both knew escaping wouldn't be easy. Tunde whispered, how will we get past the gate? The guards are always there. Bessie sighed. I know, Tunde. It's going to be tricky. We need to be patient and careful. They often found themselves staring at the high walls and watchful guards, feeling trapped. The gateman was particularly vigilant, never leaving his post unattended. Maybe we could sneak out at night, Tunde suggested hopefully. It's too risky, Bessie replied. The security cameras are always on, and the night guards do regular patrols. Their desire for freedom grew, but so did their frustration at the seemingly impossible task ahead. The next day, Bessie sat alone in her small room, her mind racing with ideas. She tried to think of ways to escape with Tunde, but each plan seemed more impossible than the last. We could sneak out at night, she muttered to herself. No, the guards would catch us. She paced back and forth, growing more frustrated. Maybe we could disguise ourselves, but how would we get past the gate? After hours of failed planning, Bessie slumped onto her bed, feeling defeated. Suddenly, a new thought struck her. What if I just told them the truth? She whispered. The idea both terrified and excited her. She imagined herself standing before the billionaire, revealing her true identity as Tunde's mother. "It's risky," she said to herself, "but it might be our only chance." Bessie took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "I have to do this," she decided. "For Tunde, for both of us." She knew this choice would change everything, but she was ready to fight for her son. By evening, the billionaire's family had gathered for dinner. The dining room was filled with the clinking of expensive cutlery and quiet conversation. Bessie stood nervously by the door, her heart pounding. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I'm sorry, sir, but I have something important to say." Bessie spoke, her voice trembling slightly. Mr. Olu looked up from his plate, confusion etched on his face. "What is it, Bessie? Can't it wait until after dinner?" Bessie shook her head. "No, sir, it can't wait any longer." She paused, gathering her courage. "The truth is, Tunde is my son. I'm his real mother." The room fell silent. Lola's fork clattered onto her plate. "What? What nonsense are you talking about? Tunde is our son!" she screamed, her face turning red. Mr. Olu stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Bessie, what's wrong with you? We hired you as a nanny, not to claim our child as your own." Bessie's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, sir, but it's true. I had to leave him at your gate years ago because I was too poor to raise him. When I saw you needed a nanny, I took the chance to be close to him. I never meant to deceive you." Lola's voice was cold with fury. "This is ridiculous. You're fired, Bessie. Pack your things and get out of our house immediately." Bessie stood her ground, her voice growing stronger. "I can't leave without Tunde. He's my biological son. I won't abandon him again." Mr. Olu's face contorted with anger. "This is outrageous. You have no right to come into our home and make these claims. Leave now, or I'll call the police." "Please, I want to go with her," Tunde cried out, tears streaming down his face. He tried to run to Bessie, but Lola grabbed his arm. "You can't go with her, Tunde," Lola said firmly. "We're your parents. We raised you. Now go to your room and don't say another word." Bessie's heart broke seeing Tunde's distress. "I won't leave without my son," she repeated, her voice cracking with emotion. Mr. Olu had heard enough. He turned to the doorway and shouted, "Security! Get in here now!" The gateman rushed in, looking confused. Mr. Olu pointed at Bessie. "Remove this woman from our property immediately. She is no longer welcome here." "No, please," Bessie begged as the gateman grabbed her arm. "Nanny Bessie!" Tunde tried to break free from Lola's grip. "Don't take her away." But it was too late. The gateman dragged Bessie through the house and out the front door. With a final shove, she found herself outside the gate, alone on the dark street. As the gate clanged shut behind her, Bessie collapsed to her knees, sobbing. Inside, she could still hear Tunde's muffled cries. The night air was cold, and she had nowhere to go. But even in her despair, she made a silent promise to her son. "I'll find a way back to you, Tunde. I won't give up." Bessie wandered the dark streets for hours, her feet aching and her heart heavy. Finally, she stumbled upon an unfinished building and decided to take shelter there for the night. As she lay on the cold concrete floor, her mind raced with worry and regret. "What have I done?" she whispered to herself. "How will I ever see Tunde again?" She tossed and turned, unable to find comfort. "Maybe I should have waited longer," she muttered, but I couldn't keep lying to him. Meanwhile, back at the billionaire's mansion, Tunde lay awake in his bed, tears silently rolling down his cheeks. Why did they send Nanny Bessie away? He wondered aloud. "She's my real mom. Will I ever see her again?" He clutched his pillow tightly, feeling more alone than ever. "I wish I could have gone with her," he sniffled. "What if she doesn't come back for me?" As the night wore on, both Bessie and Tunde remained awake, their thoughts filled with fear and longing for each other. The next morning, Mr. Olu and Lola sat in their luxurious living room, their faces etched with worry. The events of the previous night weighed heavily on their minds. Lola broke the tense silence. "Honey, what if Bessie was telling the truth? What if Tunde really is her son?" Mr. Olu frowned, rubbing his temples. "I've been thinking about that too. Remember how we found Tunde at our gate all those years ago?" Lola nodded slowly. Yes, it was such a strange night. We just took him in. I've been suspecting something was off with that nanny, Mr. Olu admitted. She was always so close to Tunde, more than a normal nanny would be. Lola's voice rose with anger. I can't believe we hired her. Now she shows up claiming Tunde as her own, a boy she abandoned. We're the ones who gave him a good life. Mr. Olu stood up, pacing the room. After all these years of raising Tunde, how can she think she has any right to him now? Exactly, Lola exclaimed. She's poor. She has no resources. We're the ones who've provided for Tunde. She can't just waltz in and take him away. Unknown to them, Tunde stood just outside the room, listening to every word, his small hands clenched into fists as he realized the truth of Bessie's words. Later that day, Mr. Olu noticed Tunde's change in behavior. Tunde, come here! Why aren't you eating your dinner? Tunde glared at him, pushing his plate away. I'm not hungry. Lola tried to intervene. Tunde, honey, what's wrong? You love this food. Stop pretending you care, Tunde shouted, surprising both adults. You're not my real parents. Mr. Olu's face hardened. Tunde, that's no way to speak to us. Go to your room now. As Tunde stormed off, Lola turned to her husband, her voice trembling. What are we going to do? He's never acted like this before. Mr. Olu sighed heavily. We'll have to be patient. He's confused right now, but we're his parents. No matter what Bessie says, he'll come around. But as days passed, Tunde's behavior only worsened. He refused to eat, barely spoke, and spent most of his time alone in his room. Lola and Mr. Olu exchanged worried glances. They were losing the boy they had raised as their own, and they didn't know how to fix it. Bessie sat on the curb, her head in her hands. How can I fight against rich people like them? She muttered to herself. I'm just a poor woman, but I can't give up on my son. Tears streamed down her face as she sobbed openly on the street. A man walking by noticed her distress and approached cautiously. Excuse me, ma'am, he said gently. Is everything okay? Why are you crying out here in this heat? Bessie looked up, wiping her eyes. It's nothing you can help with. The problem is too big. The man sat down beside her. Sometimes talking about our problems can help. Why don't you tell me what's wrong? Maybe I can offer some advice or assistance. Bessie hesitated, then sighed. Well, it's a long story, but it's about my son. He's been taken from me by a wealthy family. The man listened intently as Bessie began to share her story, offering her a sympathetic ear in her moment of despair. Bessie took a deep breath and began sharing her story with the stranger. It all started years ago when I was young and poor. I had a baby boy, but I couldn't take care of him. So I left him at a rich family's gate, hoping they'd give him a better life. The man listened intently, nodding for her to continue. Recently, I got a job as a nanny for that same family. I didn't know it was my son at first, but when I realized, I couldn't keep it a secret anymore. I told them the truth, and they kicked me out. Now they're keeping my son from me. Bessie finished, her voice breaking. Please, she pleaded. I just want my son back. He's not happy with them. I know it in my heart. The man's expression softened. I understand your pain, but crying won't solve anything. You need to be strong for your son. I think I might be able to help you, but I need to be certain you're telling the truth. Are you really the boy's mother? Bessie nodded vigorously. Yes, I swear it. I can prove it if I need to. The man introduced himself as Mr. Dare, a lawyer. Your situation touches me, Bessie. I want to help you. Bessie's eyes lit up with hope. Really? You'd do that for me? Mr. Dare smiled kindly. Yes, but first, let's get you somewhere safe to stay. You can't keep sleeping on the streets. He helped Bessie find a small, affordable apartment. It's not much, he said, but it's a start. You'll be safe here while we figure out what to do next. Bessie looked around the tiny room, tears of gratitude in her eyes. Thank you, Mr. Dare. I don't know how to repay you. Don't worry about that now, he replied. Let's focus on getting your son back. With the little money she had saved from her nanny job, Bessie bought some basic groceries. As she put them away in the small kitchen, she turned to Mr. Dare. What's our next step? She asked, determination in her voice. Mister? Dare sat at the small table, his brow furrowed in thought. First, we need to gather evidence. Do you have any documents that prove you're Tunde's mother? Birth certificate, maybe? Bessie's face fell. No, I don't have anything like that. I was so young and scared when I had him. That makes things harder, but not impossible, Mr. Dare reassured her. We might need to consider a DNA test. Are you willing to do that? Bessie nodded without hesitation. Absolutely. Anything to get my son back. Mr. Dare stood up, a plan forming in his mind. All right, Bessie, get some rest tonight. Tomorrow we'll start building our case. It won't be easy going against a wealthy family. But I promise you, we'll do everything we can to reunite you with your son. As Mr. Dare left, Bessie sat on her small bed, feeling a mix of hope and anxiety. She looked out the window, thinking of Tunde. Hold on, my son, she whispered. I'm coming for you. I won't give up. 2 days later, Bessie and Mr. Dare stood at the gates of the billionaire's mansion. Bessie's heart raced as they were led in by the security guard. They found Mr. Olu and Lola relaxing on the patio, enjoying the cool evening breeze. Mr. Olu's eyes widened in surprise when he saw Bessie. You again? I thought we made it clear you weren't welcome here. And who's this man with you? Mr. Dare stepped forward, his demeanor professional and calm. Good evening, Mr. Olu. I'm Dare Johnson, an attorney representing Ms. Bessie. We're here to discuss the matter of Tunde. Lola stood up abruptly, her face flushing with anger. There's nothing to discuss. Tunde is our son. Mr. Olu placed a hand on his wife's arm, trying to calm her. He turned to Mr. Olu, Dare with a forced smile. So, Bessie's brought a lawyer to claim Tunde. That's quite amusing, considering she has no proof he's her son. Mr. Dare remained unruffled. That's precisely why we're here, Mr. Olu. We'd like to propose a DNA test to determine Tunde's parentage once and for all. Mr. Olu's smile faltered. A DNA test? That's absurd. We don't need to prove anything. Tunde is our son. End of story. Bessie, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. Please, Mr. Olu, if you're so sure, why not take the test? What are you afraid of? Lola glared at Bessie. We're not afraid of anything. We just don't need to prove ourselves to a woman who we employed as a nanny over our child. Mr. Dare intervened, his voice firm but respectful. Mr. and Mrs. Olu, I understand this is a sensitive issue, but surely you can see that a DNA test would put this matter to rest. If Tunde is truly your biological son, you have nothing to lose. Mr. Olu paced the patio, clearly agitated. This is ridiculous. We've raised Tunde for years. We're the only parents he's ever known. That may be true, Mr. Dare acknowledged, but it doesn't change the fact that Ms. Bessie claims to be his biological mother. A DNA test is the most straightforward way to resolve this. A tense silence fell over the group. Mr. Olu and Lola exchanged worried glances. Bessie pleaded, her voice breaking. Please, I just want to know for sure. Don't you want to know the truth? Mr. Olu ran his hand through his hair, frustration evident on his face. And what if the test shows Tunde isn't our biological son? What then? Do you expect us to just hand him over to you? Mister? Dare shook his head. No one's talking about taking Tunde away right now. This is simply about establishing the truth. Any decisions about Tunde's future would need to consider his best interests. Lola burst out. His best interests are with us. We're the ones who've given him everything. Bessie couldn't hold back her tears. I know you've taken good care of him. I'm grateful for that. But he's my son. I have a right to be in his life. The argument continued, voices rising and falling as emotions ran high. Mr. Olu paced back and forth, clearly torn. Finally, after what seemed like hours of debate, Mr. Olu held up his hand. Enough? Fine. We'll do the DNA test. Lola gasped. Olu, are you sure? He nodded, his expression grim. Yes. If it's the only way to put this matter to rest, then so be it. But understand this, he said, turning to Bessie and Mr. Dare. Regardless of what the test shows, we won't give up Tunde without a fight. Mr. Dare nodded solemnly. We understand. Thank you for agreeing to the test. We'll arrange for it to be done at a reputable clinic as soon as possible. As Bessie and Mr. Dare prepared to leave, Bessie caught a glimpse of Tunde watching from an upstairs window. Their eyes met briefly before he disappeared from view. Bessie's heart ached, but she felt a glimmer of hope. Soon, she whispered to herself. Soon I'll know the truth. The next day, a tense group gathered at the hospital for the DNA test. Bessie, Mr. Dare, and Mr. Olu sat in the waiting room, avoiding eye contact with each other. After what felt like hours, the doctor emerged with a folder in hand. I have the results, he announced. Everyone leaned forward, hearts racing. The doctor cleared his throat. According to the DNA analysis, the child Tunde is Mr. Olu's biological son. A collective gasp filled the room. Mr. Olu stood stunned. Bessie shook her head violently. No, that's impossible. There must be a mistake. Tunde is my son. Mr. Dare gently took the results from the doctor, his brow furrowed as he read. I'm sorry, Bessie, but it's clear here. The DNA matches Mr. Olu. Bessie collapsed to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. This can't be right. How is this possible? Mr. Olu, still in shock, muttered, I didn't expect this. I truly thought. The doctor tried to comfort Bessie. I understand this is difficult, but the test is highly accurate. Bessie looked up, her eyes wild with desperation. Please, there must be some mistake. Can we do the test again? Mr. Dare placed a hand on her shoulder. Bessie, I know this isn't what you wanted to hear, but we have to accept the results. As the reality sank in, Bessie's cries echoed through the hospital corridor, leaving everyone wondering how this unexpected turn of events could have happened. Bessie crumpled to the floor of the hospital corridor, her body shaking with uncontrollable sobs. Passersby cast sympathetic glances, but she was oblivious to everything except her overwhelming grief. How is this possible? She whispered between gasps. Tunde is my son. I carried him. I gave birth to him. How can the DNA say otherwise? Mr. Dare knelt beside her, his face etched with concern. Bessie, please, try to calm down. We need to think this through. Bessie looked up at him, her eyes red and swollen. Think what through? The test says Tunde isn't mine, but I know he is. I just know it. Meanwhile, Mr. Olu stood a few feet away, his expression a mix of relief and confusion. He turned to Mr. Dare, his voice steady but with a hint of smugness. Well, Mr. Lawyer, I told you from the beginning that Tunde was our son. I hope this puts an end to your client's ridiculous claims. Mr. Dare frowned, clearly troubled by the turn of events. Mr. Olu, I admit I didn't expect this outcome, but you must understand why we pursued this course of action. Mr. Olu waved his hand dismissively. I understand nothing except that you've wasted our time and caused unnecessary stress to my family. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going home to my son. As Mr. Olu walked away, Bessie struggled to her feet, her legs weak and unsteady. Lawyer, please, she begged, grabbing Mr. Dare's arm. You can't give up now. There must be some mistake. Tunde is my son. I don't understand how the DNA could say Mr. Olu is the father. Mr. Dare sighed heavily, his professional demeanor slipping to reveal his own confusion and disappointment. Bessie, I want to believe you, but DNA doesn't lie. It's the most accurate way to determine parentage. But what if something went wrong with the test? Bessie pressed, desperation clear in her voice. What if there was a mix-up at the lab? Or what if someone tampered with the results? Mister? Dare shook his head slowly. Those are serious accusations, Bessie. We can't make claims like that without evidence. I'm sorry, but I don't see what else we can do at this point. Bessie's face crumpled, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. So that's it? You're giving up on me? On Tunde? The lawyer placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. I'm not giving up, Bessie, but we need to be realistic. The law is clear on this matter. Without evidence to challenge the DNA results, we have no legal grounds to pursue custody. Bessie pulled away from him, her voice rising with anger and despair. I don't care about legal grounds. I care about my son. I won't stop fighting for him, even if I have to do it alone. With that, she turned and stumbled down the hospital corridor, leaving Mr. Dare standing there, watching her go with a mixture of sympathy and helplessness. Mr. Olu pulled into the driveway of his mansion, his mind still reeling from the day's events. He hurried inside, finding Lola lounging on the couch watching TV. "Darling, you won't believe what happened at the hospital today," he said, his voice filled with excitement and confusion. Lola turned to him, a sly smile on her face. "Oh, try me. I might not be as surprised as you think." Mr. Olu's eyebrows shot up. "What do you mean? Do you know something about this?" Lola laughed, a hint of mischief in her eyes. "Let's just say I had a feeling things would work out in our favor." "Lola, what are you talking about?" Mr. Olu pressed. "The DNA test. It said I'm Tunde's father. But how is that possible?" Lola stood up, walking towards her husband. "Oh, Olu, did you really think I'd let that woman take our son? Of course, I made sure the test results went our way." Mr. Olu's jaw dropped. "Wait, are you saying you tampered with the test?" Lola nodded, looking rather proud of herself. "I contacted the doctor at Eco Medical Center and made sure he'd give us the results we wanted. A little bribe goes a long way." Mr. Olu was speechless for a moment, then pulled Lola into a tight hug. "I can't believe you did that. You're incredible." Lola hugged him back, her voice hardening. "That Bessie girl is delusional if she thinks she can come back after all these years and take Tunde from us. Not on my watch." Mr. Olu pulled back, a mix of admiration and concern on his face. "But Lola, if this ever gets out..." Lola waved her hand dismissively. "It won't. We're in the clear now. Tunde is ours legally and officially. End of story." Despite the setback with the DNA test, Bessie refused to give up on Tunde. Each day, she'd wake up with renewed determination. "I know I'm poor," she'd tell herself, "but I'm his mother. I have to keep fighting." As she sat in her small rented room, an idea struck her. "Tunde's school," she exclaimed. "I can find him there." Bessie paced her room, planning her next move. "I'll go to his school," she muttered. "I can talk to him there, away from the billionaires." She hesitated, worry creeping in. "But what if they've told the school not to let me near him?" Shaking off her doubts, Bessie straightened her shoulders. "It doesn't matter. I have to try. Tunde needs to know the truth." She glanced at the clock, calculating the best time to go. "I'll wait until just before school ends. That's my best chance to see him." With a mix of hope and anxiety, Bessie prepared herself for the confrontation ahead, determined to reconnect with her son, no matter the obstacles. Bessie woke up early, her heart filled with hope. She carefully chose her clothes, wanting to look presentable. As the school day neared its end, she hailed a bike. "To King's Academy, please," she told the rider, her voice trembling with anticipation. Arriving at the school, Bessie's eyes scanned the compound anxiously. Suddenly, she collided with someone. "Oh, I'm sorry," Bessie apologized, looking up to see a familiar face. The teacher's eyes widened in recognition. "Wait, aren't you Tunde's nanny?" Bessie stumbled over her words. "Yes, I was. I'm here to pick him up." The teacher frowned, confused. "Tunde? But he doesn't go here anymore, didn't you know?" Bessie's heart sank. "What do you mean? When did this happen?" "His parents transferred him after he won that big award," the teacher explained. "I thought you'd know, being his nanny and all." Bessie's mind raced. "No, there must be some mistake. Can I check his classroom?" The teacher shook her head. "I'm sorry, but that's not possible. Is everything okay? You seem upset." Bessie forced a smile. "No, everything's fine. I must have forgotten about the transfer. Thank you." As the teacher walked away, Bessie leaned against a wall, devastation washing over her. She realized the billionaires had outsmarted her once again, moving Tunde to keep him out of her reach. "What am I going to do now?" she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. The path to her son seemed to grow more difficult with each passing day. Tunde sat at his desk, staring blankly at the open book before him. While his classmates laughed and played outside, he remained lost in thought, his mind filled with worry about his real mother, Bessie. His teacher, Mrs. Titi, watched him with concern. "Tunde," she called softly. When he didn't respond, she approached his desk. "Tunde," she said louder, tapping his shoulder. Tunde startled, looking up at his teacher with sad eyes. "Oh, sorry, Mrs. Titi, I didn't hear you." Mrs. Titi pulled up a chair. Tunde, what's wrong? You've been so quiet lately. This isn't like you at all. Tunde hesitated, then sighed deeply. It's nothing, Mrs. Titi. I'm fine. But Mrs. Titi wasn't convinced. Come on, Tunde. I can see something's bothering you. Maybe I can help if you tell me what's going on. After some gentle prodding, Tunde finally opened up. It's my mother, he said quietly. My real mother. She's been forced to leave, and I'm not happy living with the billionaires anymore. Mrs. Titi listened intently as Tunde poured out his story. When he finished, she placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. Oh, Tunde, that's such a difficult situation. Your mother needs legal help. Actually, my husband is a judge. He might be able to assist. Tunde's eyes lit up slightly. Really? You do that for me? Mrs. Titi nodded. Of course. But tell me, do you know where your mother is staying now? Tunde shook his head sadly. No, but I remember the lawyer who was helping her. His name is Mr. Dare. He lives at number 20 in our estate. His son is in my class, Wale. Mrs. Titi's eyes widened in recognition. Mr. Dare? I know him. He's a friend of my husband. This is perfect, Tunde. We might be able to locate your mother through him. For the first time in days, a small smile appeared on Tunde's face. Thank you so much, Mrs. Titi. She squeezed his hand reassuringly. Everything will be okay, Tunde. We'll figure this out. Now, why don't you go join your friends outside? It might help take your mind off things for a bit. Tunde nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope as he headed to the playground. Mrs. Titi watched him go, already planning how she could help reunite this young boy with his mother. After her conversation with Tunde, Mrs. Titi wasted no time in discussing the matter with her husband, Judge Bello. Honey, I have a sensitive case I need your help with, she began. It's about one of my students, Tunde. Judge Bello listened intently as his wife explained the situation. This is indeed a complex case, he said, but we can't ignore a child's welfare. I'll look into it immediately. After Mrs. Titi's conversation with her husband, Judge Bello, he took immediate action. The next morning, he called his court clerk. I need 2 summons prepared immediately, he instructed. One for Mr. and Mrs. Olu, and another for a woman named Bessie. The clerk nodded. Yes, Your Honor. I'll have them ready within the hour. By afternoon, 2 official-looking envelopes were on their way. A court courier drove to the billionaire's mansion first, ringing the doorbell with a sense of importance. The housekeeper answered, Yes? Delivery for Mr. and Mrs. Olu, the courier said, handing over the envelope. At the same time, another courier navigated the bustling streets to find Bessie's modest apartment. He knocked on her door repeatedly until she answered. Ms. Bessie? He asked. When she nodded, he handed her the envelope. Court summons for you, ma'am. Back at the mansion, Mr. Olu tore open the envelope, his face growing redder as he read. Lola, he yelled. Come here now. Lola rushed in. What is it, dear? Mr. Olu's voice shook as he read aloud. You are hereby summoned to appear in court to prove the biological parentage of the child known as Tunde. This is outrageous. Lola's face paled. How did this happen? We were so careful with everything. Mr. Olu crumpled the paper in his fist. I don't know, but we're not going down without a fight. Call our lawyer immediately. On the day of the hearing, the courtroom buzzed with tension. Judge Bello entered, and everyone rose. Be seated, he said. We're here to determine the true parentage of Tunde. Let's begin with the previous DNA test results. Mr. Olu's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, we have those results here. They clearly show my client is the father. As he handed over the documents, the court-appointed investigator interrupted. Your Honor, I have an urgent matter to report. Judge Bello nodded. Proceed. The investigator took a deep breath. We found evidence that the original DNA test was tampered with. Gasps filled the room. Mr. Olu grabbed Lola's hand, both looking panicked. Order, Judge Bello demanded. This is a serious allegation. Can you elaborate? The investigator explained. We traced large payments from an offshore account to the lab technician who handled the test. Judge Bello's face hardened. In light of this, I'm ordering a new DNA test to be conducted under strict supervision. Days later, Everyone reconvened. The tension was palpable as the court clerk stood up with the results. The DNA test confirms that Bessie is the biological mother of Tunde, with 99.9% certainty. Bessie couldn't contain herself. "I knew it. He's my son," she cried out. Mr. Olu stood up, shouting, "This is impossible. It must be another mistake." "Silence," Judge Bello commanded. He took a moment before continuing. "Based on this evidence, I rule in favor of Bessie. She is granted full custody of Tunde." He then addressed the billionaires directly. "You are ordered to return the prize money of 20 million naira to Tunde to be held in trust by Bessie." As the gavel fell, Bessie hugged her lawyer, sobbing, "Thank you so much. I can't believe it's finally over." Outside, Tunde broke away from the billionaires and ran to Bessie. "Mom!" he cried, throwing himself into her arms. Bessie held him tight, her voice shaking. "Yes, my darling. We're together now, and I promise nothing will ever separate us again." Mr. Olu watched the scene, his face a mix of anger and defeat. "This isn't over," he muttered to Lola. "We'll appeal. We'll fight this." But as they watched Tunde and Bessie leave hand in hand, both knew that their perfect family facade had crumbled for good. Mr. Olu and his wife Lola were furious after losing the court case. Weeks had passed, but the bitterness in their hearts only grew stronger. They couldn't believe they had lost custody of Tunde, the boy they had raised as their own. "I can't just let them take Tunde away from us like this," Mr. Olu muttered, his voice thick with frustration. "We were the ones who raised him, and now they're just going to take him away. It's not fair." Lola's eyes narrowed, and her anger flared even more. "If I can't have Tunde, then nobody will," she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "I already have a plan." Without another word, she stood up abruptly and marched into her room. Her hands trembled with rage as she grabbed her phone. She dialed a number quickly, her mind racing with dark thoughts. "Yes. Are you and your men ready?" she asked, her tone cold and commanding. "Everything happens today. When you kidnap the boy, make sure you kill him." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line before she continued, her voice filled with a twisted satisfaction. "Let's see how they feel when they lose him too. If I can't have Tunde, then nobody will. We all lose the boy." She ended the call with a wicked laugh, the sound echoing through the room. If you're eager to see how this story unfolds, please subscribe and let us know in the comments below. Type continue
If you made it to the end of part 2 of this thrilling story, then all I can say is congratulations and thank you. These videos really take a lot of time to make, but you guys' support really keep me going. Comments below and share this video with your friends and family. Also, like and subscribe to the channel so that you'll be the first to be notified when I drop a new video.
Lola's laughter echoed through the mansion as she finished her phone call. "Now let's see who loses," she muttered to herself. "If I can't have Tunde, then nobody else will. We all lose the boy." Her eyes gleamed with a dangerous light as she walked out of her room. She found her husband, Mr. Olu, in his study. "Honey, don't worry about a thing," Lola said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I have everything under control." Mr. Olu looked up from his desk, his face etched with concern. "Lola, I don't think you're making a good decision here. I overheard what you said on the phone." He stood up, his voice rising. "Are you out of your mind? You want to kill an innocent boy? No, this is not a good decision at all." Lola's face hardened. "Honey, are you happy that they took Tunde away from us? After all we've done for him?" She crossed her arms defiantly. "This is my decision and it's final." Mr. Olu ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "Lola, listen to me. You're my wife, and I love you, but this is wrong on so many levels. You can't do such a thing to a boy just because his biological mother came for him. I won't support this madness." "You don't have to support it," Lola snapped. "I'll handle it myself." Mr. Olu paced the room, his anger mixing with disbelief. "Have you forgotten all the years we spent raising Tunde? The birthdays, the school plays, the family vacations. How can you even think about hurting him?" Lola's eyes flashed. "Those memories mean nothing now. He's not ours anymore, Olu. Can't you see that? But that doesn't give us the right to harm him," Mr. Olu shouted, slamming his fist on the desk. Think about what you're doing, Lola. This isn't just illegal, it's morally reprehensible. Lola turned away, her voice cold. I've made up my mind. Either you're with me, or you're against me. Mr. Olu stared at his wife, barely recognizing the woman before him. He was furious that Tunde had been taken away, but the thought of harming the boy they had raised as their own made him sick to his stomach. I won't be part of this, Lola. If you go through with this plan, you're on your own. Lola laughed bitterly. Fine. I don't need your help anyway. You'll see, Olu. In the end, you'll thank me for this. As Lola stormed out of the room, Mr. Olu collapsed into his chair, his head in his hands. He knew he had to find a way to stop his wife before it was too late, but he felt powerless against her determination. The once happy family was now torn apart, with an innocent boy caught in the middle of a dangerous game. That same day, Tunde was set to travel to another state to continue his education. He would be staying with a man named Mr. Ade, a friend of his schoolteacher who lived in Abia State. Before the journey, Bessie sat Tunde down in their small living room. Her eyes were filled with a mix of pride and worry as she looked at her son. Tunde, my dear, she began. I want to make sure you're prepared for this new chapter in your life. Tunde nodded, his backpack already packed and waiting by the door. I'm listening, Mom, he said, trying to hide his nervousness. Bessie took his hands in hers. First and foremost, always be respectful to Mr. Ade. He's kind enough to take you in, so show him your best behavior. She paused, then added, and remember, even if you think you're right, be the first to apologize if there's a disagreement. It shows maturity and strength of character. But what if I'm really sure I'm right? Tunde asked, his brow furrowed. Bessie smiled gently. Sometimes, keeping peace is more important than being right. You'll understand as you grow older. She hugged him tightly. Don't worry too much. I promise I'll visit you in Abia State as soon as I can. You're going to do great things, my son. As they prepared to leave for the motor park, Tunde's teacher arrived to see him off. The three of them walked together, with Tunde between them, his backpack slung over his shoulder. At the busy motor park, they found the bus that would take Tunde to Abia State. The air was filled with the sounds of engines revving and people shouting farewells. Tunde, his teacher said, placing a hand on his shoulder. I hope you were listening to your mother's advice. It's all very important. She smiled warmly. Mr. Ade is a wonderful person. I'm sure you'll get along well with him. Tunde nodded, trying to look brave. Yes, teacher. I'll do my best. As Tunde prepared to board the bus, Bessie hugged him one last time. Be safe, my dear. Call me as soon as you arrive. I will, Mom, Tunde promised, his voice slightly shaky. He climbed onto the bus, finding a seat by the window. As the driver started the engine, Tunde waved to his mother and teacher. They waved back, standing close together for support. The bus slowly pulled out of the motor park. Tunde kept waving until he could no longer see the two women who had shaped his life. As the familiar sights of his hometown faded away, he felt a mixture of excitement and fear for the journey ahead. Bessie and the teacher watched until the bus was out of sight. He'll be fine, the teacher reassured Bessie, noticing the tears in her eyes. Bessie nodded, wiping her eyes. Yes, he will. He's a strong boy. As they turned to leave the motor park, Bessie silently prayed for her son's safety and success in his new home. The bus rumbled along the road, leaving the busy motor park behind. Tunde sat quietly, watching the scenery change from buildings to trees. Suddenly, the peaceful journey was shattered. What's happening? A passenger shouted as the bus swerved violently. The driver yelled, Someone's shooting at us! Gunshots rang out, and the bus screeched to a halt. Tunde's heart pounded as he saw men with masks and guns emerge from the bushes. Everyone out, now! One of the men shouted, waving his gun. Passengers screamed and cried. An old woman next to Tunde whimpered, Oh God, please help us. Tunde, just 13, had never been so scared. He crouched down in his seat, trembling. You too, boy. Get down, a masked man yelled at Tunde. With shaky legs, Tunde followed the other passengers off the bus. They all huddled together on the roadside. The masked men moved through the group, roughly pushing people aside. Tunde felt a strong hand grab his shoulder. Look up, boy. a gruff voice commanded. Tunde slowly raised his head, his eyes wide with fear. "That's the target. Confirmed," one of the men shouted. Before Tunde could react, a cloth was shoved into his mouth. He tried to scream, but only muffled sounds came out. "Quiet, kid," a kidnapper growled, lifting Tunde off his feet. Tunde kicked and struggled, but the man was too strong. He heard the other passengers yelling as he was carried away. "What are you doing? He's just a child," someone shouted. "Leave the boy alone," another voice called out. But the kidnappers ignored them, taking Tunde deeper into the bush. "Keep moving," one man said, pushing Tunde forward. They walked for what felt like hours to Tunde. The bush got thicker, making it hard to see where they were going. Finally, they reached a small clearing. One of the men shoved Tunde to the ground. "Sit there and don't move," he ordered. Tunde huddled on the ground, his arms wrapped around his knees. He wanted to cry, but was too scared to make a sound. The kidnappers stood around, talking in low voices. "When's the boss getting here?" one asked. "Soon," another replied. "He wants to see the boy himself." Tunde's mind raced. Who was their boss? What did they want with him? As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the trees, Tunde had never felt more alone and afraid. He thought of his mother and wished he had never left home. One of the kidnappers looked at Tunde and chuckled. "Scared, kid? You should be. The boss has big plans for you." Tunde shuddered, wondering what those plans could be. All he could do now was wait in terror for the arrival of the mysterious gang leader. As the sun set, Bessie paced in her small living room. She kept checking her watch, growing more anxious with each passing minute. "He should have called by now," she muttered, reaching for her phone again. She dialed Tunde's number, listening to the rings with hope. But once more she heard the automated message. "The number you have dialed is switched off." Bessie's hands shook as she ended the call. "Why is his phone off? I told him to keep it on at all times." She tried to calm herself, taking deep breaths. Maybe the battery died, or there's no signal. Yes, that must be it. But as the night grew darker, her worry increased. She decided to call Mr. Aid in obvious state. The phone rang several times before a man's voice answered. "Hello? Mr. Aid, this is Bessie, Tunde's mother," she said quickly. "Oh, hello, Bessie. Is everything okay?" Mr. Aid asked. Bessie's voice trembled as she spoke. "I'm calling to check if Tunde has arrived. He hasn't called me yet." There was a pause on the other end. "I'm sorry, Bessie, but Tunde isn't here. I've been waiting all day, but there's no sign of him or the bus he was supposed to be on." Bessie felt her heart drop. "What? But he left this morning. He should have been there hours ago." "I know," Mr. Aid replied, concern evident in his voice. "I've tried calling the bus company, but I can't get through." Bessie sank into a chair, her legs weak. "Something's wrong. I can feel it. My boy is in trouble." Bessie's heart raced as she rushed to the motor park, her mind filled with terrible thoughts. The night air was cool, but she didn't notice, focused only on finding out what happened to Tunde. At the motor park, she found a small group of people talking in hushed tones. As she approached, they turned to look at her with sympathy. "Excuse me," Bessie said, her voice shaking. "I'm looking for information about the bus that left for Abbey Estate this morning. My son was on it." An older man stepped forward, his face grim. "Are you Tunde's mother?" he asked gently. Bessie nodded, her throat tight with fear. The man sighed heavily. "I'm sorry to tell you this, but there was an incident on the road. The bus was attacked by a group of men. They kidnapped your son." Bessie felt her legs give way. She stumbled, and someone caught her arm to steady her. No, please tell me my son is safe," Bessie cried, tears streaming down her face. "He is my only hope. There must be some mistake." A woman nearby tried to comfort her. "Please, you have to calm down. The police are already working on it. I'm sure they will find your son. You must be patient." Bessie couldn't stop sobbing. "Patient? How can I be patient when my boy is out there, scared and alone?" The older man who had broken the news spoke again. "Ma'am, I understand your pain. I was on that bus. Your son, he was brave. He didn't cry or make a fuss when they took him." "You saw it happen?" Bessie asked, her voice barely a whisper. Did they hurt him? The man shook his head. No, they didn't harm him. They seemed to know who he was. It was like they were looking for him specifically. This information made Bessie's blood run cold. But why? Who would want to take my Tunde? No one had an answer for her. The group at the motor park tried their best to console Bessie, offering her water and a place to sit. But she felt numb, barely hearing their words of comfort. After what seemed like hours, Bessie slowly stood up. I need to go home. I need to pray for my son. As she turned to leave, the woman who had spoken earlier touched her arm. We'll pray for Tunde too. Don't lose hope. Bessie nodded weakly and began the long walk home. Each step felt heavy, her mind replaying memories of Tunde's smile, his laughter. When she finally reached her small house, she collapsed on her knees by the bed. Please, God, she prayed, her voice hoarse from crying. Guide and protect my son. Bring him back to me safely. He's all I have in this world. As the night wore on, Bessie remained there, alternating between fervent prayers and quiet sobs, hoping against hope for her son's safe return. The next morning, the gang leader arrived at the secret hideout deep in the bush. As he entered the small, dilapidated building, his men stood at attention, bowing their heads in respect. Boss, welcome, said his assistant, a thin man with a scar across his cheek. We have the target. Job well done, as expected. The gang leader nodded, his face stern. Good work, boys. I knew you wouldn't fail me. The woman paid us a lot for this job. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. After a few rings, a woman's voice answered. Good news, madam, the gang leader said, his voice low and gruff. We have the boy, and we're about to finish the job, as you requested. The woman's voice crackled through the speaker, loud enough for everyone to hear. Go ahead and finish the boy. How many times do I have to tell you that? The gang leader was about to respond when he realized the woman hadn't hung up. He heard her continue speaking, presumably to someone else in the room with her. If I can't have Tunde, Bessie can't have him either, the woman ranted. I know it's her child, but she will not have him, and I won't have him either. Both of us will lose him. The gang leader's eyebrows furrowed as he listened. He looked at Tunde, who was huddled in the corner, fear evident in his young eyes. Tunde, sensing that something was about to happen, began to plead. Please don't kill me, he begged, his voice trembling. I'm just a boy, I haven't done anything wrong. The gang leader held up his hand, silencing both Tunde and his men. He stared at the boy intently, a nagging feeling growing in his gut. There was something familiar about Tunde's features, something that reminded him of his past. Wait, he instructed his men, who were moving towards Tunde. He approached the boy slowly, studying his face. Boy, he said, his voice softer now. What's the name of your mother? Tunde swallowed hard before answering. While I was growing up, I heard people call her Bessie. The gang leader's eyes widened in shock. No way, he whispered, then louder. No way. You all, we can't kill this boy. He might be my son. His men exchanged confused glances. The assistant stepped forward. Boss, what are you talking about? The gang leader ignored him, focusing on Tunde. Tell me, boy, what does this Bessie look like? What's her complexion? Tunde, still trembling but now also confused, described his mother in detail. As he spoke, the gang leader's face grew paler. Has Bessie ever told you anything about how she gave birth to you? The gang leader asked urgently. Tunde nodded slowly. She told me that someone in her village, a man she was in love with, got her pregnant. But he denied the baby and ran away. She left home because of shame and rejection from her family. She suffered a lot, gave birth to me, and then left me at the billionaire's mansion. That's how I became their child. The gang leader's legs felt weak. He sat down heavily on a nearby chair. What's the name of the village? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. When Tunde mentioned the name, the gang leader fell to his knees. This is my son, he said, his voice filled with awe and regret. A long time ago, I got his mother pregnant and ran away to the city. I guess she did the same. The other kidnappers looked at each other, amazed and surprised by this turn of events. One of them, a burly man with a thick beard, stepped forward. Boss, he said hesitantly, what are we going to do now? If the target is your son, we can't kill him. How do we handle this? The gang leader stood up slowly, his mind racing. He looked at Tunde, seeing himself in the boy's features. Then he turned to his men, his decision made. It's simple, he said. We'll continue with the boy's journey. Take him to where he was going. We'll lie to the woman who hired us. Tell her we killed the boy. Then we'll collect our full payment. Tunde, who had been listening to all of this with growing amazement, felt a surge of relief and happiness. You're my father? He asked, his voice filled with wonder. The gang leader nodded, a small smile forming on his tough face. It seems so, boy. It seems so. One of the kidnappers spoke up. But boss, what about the woman who hired us? Won't she be suspicious if she doesn't see a body? The gang leader waved his hand dismissively. Leave that to me. I've been in this business long enough to know how to handle these things. He turned back to Tunde, his expression softening. I know this is all very sudden and confusing for you, boy, but I promise I'll explain everything. For now, we need to get you to safety. Tunde nodded, still trying to process everything that had happened. What about my mother? I mean, Bessie. She must be worried sick about me. The gang leader's face clouded with guilt. We'll deal with that too. But first, let's get you out of here. He turned to his men. Prepare a vehicle. We're taking the boy to his original destination. And remember, not a word of this to anyone. As far as the world is concerned, the job was completed as requested. As his men scrambled to follow his orders, the gang leader knelt beside Tunde. I know I have a lot to make up for, he said softly. I abandoned your mother, and I've lived a life that's, well, it's not something I'm proud of. But finding you, it's like a second chance. If you'll let me, I'd like to try to be the father I should have been all along. Tunde looked at the man who had just minutes ago been prepared to end his life, who now looked at him with a mixture of regret and hope. He didn't know what to feel or what to say. But deep down, he felt a strange sense of peace, as if a missing piece of his life had suddenly fallen into place. I think I'd like that, Tunde said hesitantly. But what about the billionaire's wife? Why does she want me dead? The gang leader's face hardened. Don't worry about her. I'll make sure she never bothers you again. You're my son, and I protect what's mine. As they prepared to leave the hideout, Tunde couldn't help but marvel at how quickly his life had changed. From fearing for his life to discovering his long-lost father, it all seemed like a dream. But as he looked at the gang leader's father, Kanuhe knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in his life, one filled with both challenges and opportunities. The gang leader, now known to Tunde as his father, led him quietly through the bush. They reached a small clearing where a motorcycle was hidden. We'll take this bike to the nearest bus station, Kanu explained. It's safer than using our usual vehicles. Tunde nodded, still trying to process everything that had happened. Will you come with me to Abbey Estate? He asked hesitantly. Kanu shook his head. I can't, son, it's too risky, but I'll make sure you get there safely. They rode in silence, the cool wind whipping past them. At the bus station, Kanu bought a ticket for Tunde. Remember, stick to the original plan, he said, handing Tunde the ticket. Go to Mr. Ade in Abbey Estate. Act like nothing happened. Tunde looked worried. But what about Mom? She must be so scared. Kanu's face softened. I'll take care of that. I'll find a way to let her know you're safe without revealing what really happened. As the bus arrived, Kanu pulled Tunde into a quick, awkward hug. Stay safe, son. We'll figure this all out soon. Tunde boarded the bus, finding a seat by the window. As it pulled away, he saw his newfound father watching, a mix of emotions on his face. The bus journey was uneventful, a stark contrast to the earlier kidnapping. Tunde's mind raced with questions about his past and future. Hours later, the bus pulled into Abbey Estate. As Tunde stepped off, he saw a man holding a sign with his name. Mr. Ade, he called out. The man smiled, waving him over. Tunde, welcome to Abbey Estate. I'm glad you made it safely. Tunde forced a smile, knowing he couldn't reveal the truth about his journey. Thank you, sir. I'm glad to be here too. With the information Tunde provided, the gang leader Kanu managed to find Bessie's home. He approached cautiously, spotting her sitting outside, her face etched with worry. "Hello," Kanu said softly. Bessie looked up, her eyes widening in shock. "Kanu, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice a mix of surprise and anger. Kanu raised his hands in a calming gesture. "Bessie, please, you need to calm down. I'm here to apologize for everything. I know I hurt you badly. Please, can you forgive me?" Bessie stood up, her body trembling. "Forgive you?" After all these years, tears started flowing down her cheeks. "My son, the son you abandoned me to suffer with, has been kidnapped. How can you show up now?" Kanu's face softened. "No, Bessie, he's safe." Bessie looked at him, confusion replacing her anger. "What do you mean? My son was kidnapped. How can you say he's safe?" Kanu took a deep breath. "Bessie, there's a lot I need to tell you. Can we sit down?" Still wary, Bessie nodded, and they sat on the small bench outside her house. Kanu began explaining everything his life as a gang leader, the kidnapping job, and the shocking discovery that Tunde was his son. We almost killed him, Bessie," Kanu said, his voice breaking. "But when I saw him, when I heard your name, I knew I couldn't do it." Bessie listened, her emotions swinging between disbelief, relief, and anger. "You're telling me you were the one who kidnapped our son?" Kanu nodded, shame evident on his face. "Yes, but I didn't know he was mine. As soon as I realized, I made sure he was safe. I put him on a bus to Abbey Estate myself." "So he's really okay? He made it to Mr. Aid?" Bessie asked, hope filling her voice. "Yes, he's safe. I made sure of it," Kanu assured her. Bessie's face broke into a smile, tears of joy replacing her earlier sorrow. "Thank God," she whispered. Kanu reached out hesitantly, taking Bessie's hand. "I know I've done terrible things, Bessie. I can't change the past, but I want to make things right. For you and for Tunde." Bessie looked at their joined hands, then back at Kanu's face. "It's not going to be easy, Kanu. You've missed so much." "I know," he replied, "but I'm ready to try if you'll let me." As they continued talking, Kanu's phone rang. He answered it, putting it on speaker. "Is it done?" Lola's voice came through, cold and demanding. Kanu looked at Bessie, then spoke clearly into the phone. "Yes, madam. The job is complete. The boy won't be a problem anymore." "Good," Lola replied, then hung up. Bessie looked at Kanu, a mix of gratitude and uncertainty in her eyes. "What happens now?" she asked. Kanu squeezed her hand gently. "Now, we start over, together, as a family." Tunde arrived in Abbey Estate, feeling both nervous and excited about his new life. Mr. Aid, his new guardian, welcomed him warmly. "Welcome, Tunde. I hope you'll feel at home here," he said with a kind smile. At his new school, Tunde was quiet at first, but his intelligence soon shone through. His math teacher, Mrs. Ada, noticed his talent. "Tunde, your problem-solving skills are impressive," she said one day after class. "Have you considered joining the math club?" Tunde nodded shyly. "I'd like that, Mrs. Ada. Thank you." As months passed, Tunde grew more confident. He made friends and excelled in his studies. His English teacher, Mr. Deo, was particularly impressed. "Tunde, your essay on overcoming challenges was very moving," he said. "You have a gift for writing." Tunde beamed with pride. "Thank you, sir. I just wrote from my heart." In his final year of secondary school, Tunde's principal called him to his office. "Tunde, I have exciting news," he said. "You've been awarded a scholarship to study in the United States." Tunde's eyes widened in disbelief. "Really? Me? I can't believe it." The principal nodded, smiling. "You've earned it, Tunde. Your hard work and resilience have paid off." Tunde couldn't wait to share the news with his parents. He called his mother first. "Mom, guess what? I got a scholarship to study in America." Bessie's voice cracked with emotion. "Oh, Tunde, I'm so proud of you, my son. You've come so far." When he called Kanu, his father's voice was full of pride. "That's my boy. I knew you had it in you, Tunde. Well done." The day before Tunde was to leave for America, Bessie and Kanu came to visit him. They decided to take a trip to the city to celebrate. As they walked through the bustling streets, Bessie couldn't stop smiling. "My son, going to America for studies. Who would have thought? Kanu nodded, patting Tunde on the back. You've made us proud, son. Remember where you came from. But don't be afraid to dream big. Tunde looked at his parents, feeling a mix of excitement and gratitude. I couldn't have done it without your support, both of you. As they sat in a small restaurant, enjoying a special dinner, Tunde's teacher, Mr. Aid, joined them. I hope you don't mind me crashing your family celebration, he said with a smile. Not at all, Tunde replied. You've been a big part of my journey too. Mr. Aid raised his glass in a toast. To Tunde, a bright young man with an even brighter future. May your time in America be filled with learning and growth. They all clinked glasses, and Tunde felt overwhelmed with emotion. He was about to embark on a new adventure, but he knew he had the love and support of his family behind him. As they walked back to their hotel that night, Tunde, between his parents and Mr. Aid following, felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in his new life in America. Tunde boarded the plane to America, a mix of excitement and nervousness in his stomach. As he settled into his seat, he thought about the journey ahead. Upon arriving in the U.S., Tunde found himself facing new challenges. The first day of classes was overwhelming. I can't understand half of what the professor is saying, he confided to his roommate Segan. Segan patted his shoulder. Don't worry, man. It gets easier. We're all in the same boat. As weeks passed, Tunde worked hard to keep up. Late one night in the library, he sighed in frustration. A classmate, Maya, noticed and sat next to him. Tough assignment? She asked. Tunde nodded. Sometimes I wonder if I'm cut out for this. Maya smiled encouragingly. You are. I've seen how hard you work. You'll get there. Months turned into years. Tunde's dedication paid off. During his final year, his advisor, Dr. Femi, called him into his office. Tunde, your research project is outstanding. Have you considered graduate school? Tunde beamed with pride. Thank you, sir. I'm thinking about it. On graduation day, Tunde stood in his cap and gown, diploma in hand. He called his parents. Mom, Dad, I did it. I graduated with honors. Bessie's voice was filled with joy. Oh, Tunde, we're so proud of you. Kanu added, Well done, son. You've made us all proud. As Tunde looked at his fellow graduates, he felt a sense of accomplishment. He had faced challenges, but he had overcome them all. Tunde's plane touched down in Nigeria. His heart raced with excitement as he walked through the airport. Outside, he spotted his mother waiting. Mom? Tunde called out, waving. Bessie's eyes widened in shock. She barely recognized her son, now a grown man. Tunde? Is that really you? As Tunde approached, Bessie burst into tears of joy. She pulled him into a tight hug. My son, you're back. Tunde hugged her back, feeling emotional. I've missed you so much, Mom. They got into a waiting car. As they drove to their old house, Bessie couldn't stop looking at Tunde. You've changed so much, she said, wiping her eyes. Look at you, all grown up and educated. Tunde smiled. I'm still your son, Mom, just a bit taller now. As they neared the house, Tunde saw his father waiting outside. Dad, he called out as the car stopped. Kanu's face broke into a wide grin. Welcome home, son, he said, embracing Tunde. The family stood together, overcome with happiness at being reunited after 4 long years. Days turned into months as Tunde settled back into life in Nigeria. He began searching for a job, focusing on hospitals in Lagos. One day, Tunde came home excited. Mom, Dad, I've got great news, he announced. Bessie looked up from her cooking. What is it, my son? I've been offered a position as a doctor at Lagos Central Hospital, Tunde beamed. Kanu clapped his hands. That's wonderful, Tunde. It's one of the best hospitals in the city. As Tunde's career took off, the family's life improved. They moved to a better house, and Bessie no longer had to work long hours. One evening, Kanu sat Tunde down for a serious talk. Son, there's something I need to tell you, he began hesitantly. Tunde listened in shock as Kanu confessed his past as a kidnapper and revealed who had wanted Tunde dead. How could they want me dead? Tunde asked, his voice shaking with anger. After all those years, Bessie tried to calm him, Tunde, please try to understand. People do terrible things out of fear and greed. Tunde stood up, pacing the room. I need some time to process this, he said. Later that night, Tunde reflected on his life. He thought about the billionaire family who had raised him. Despite their final actions, they had given him a good life for many years. The next morning, Tunde approached his parents. I've been thinking, he said. What they did was wrong, but I want to forgive them. Maybe one day we can all reconcile. Kanu looked at his son with pride. You're a better man than I ever was, Tunde. Your forgiveness gives me hope for the future. Years passed, and Tunde had become a respected doctor at Hope Hospital in Lagos. One busy afternoon, a nurse rushed into his office. Dr. Tunde, we have an emergency case. A woman needs urgent blood transfusion, she said breathlessly. Tunde hurried to the emergency room. As he entered, he froze. The patient was Lola, the billionaire's wife who had once wanted him dead. Dr. Tunde, are you all right? The nurse asked, noticing his hesitation. Tunde shook himself out of his shock. Yes, I'm fine. What's the patient's status? As they briefed him, Tunde learned that Lola needed a rare blood type. After checking the records, they made a startling discovery. Dr. Tunde, you're the only match we have for her blood type, the head nurse said. Tunde stood silent for a moment, his mind racing. The woman who had tried to have him killed now depended on him for survival. Doctor, we need to make a decision quickly, a colleague urged. Tunde took a deep breath. Prepare for the transfusion. I'll donate the blood. As they set up the procedure, a nurse asked, Dr. Tunde, do you know this patient? Tunde nodded slowly. It's a long story. Let's focus on saving her life. After the transfusion, Lola's condition stabilized. When she regained consciousness, the head nurse approached her. Mrs. Lola, you're very lucky. We found a blood match just in time, she explained. Lola, still weak, asked, Who? Who donated the blood? The nurse smiled. It was one of our doctors, Dr. Tunde. He's quite a hero around here. Lola's eyes widened in recognition. Tunde? It can't be. The same Tunde. Just then, Tunde entered the room. Lola gasped, tears forming in her eyes. Tunde, is it really you? She asked, her voice trembling. Tunde nodded. Yes, Mom, it's me. Lola broke down, sobbing. Oh, Tunde, after everything I did, you saved my life. Tunde approached her bed. Everyone deserves a second chance, Mom. Lola struggled to sit up, reaching for Tunde's hand. I don't deserve your kindness. What I did was unforgivable. I'm so sorry, Tunde. Tunde gently held her hand. The past is behind us now. Focus on getting better. As he turned to leave, Lola called out, Tunde, please, can you ever forgive me? Tunde paused at the door, looking back at the woman who had once been like a mother to him. Forgiveness is a journey, Mom. We've taken the first step today. Tunde stood in the hospital hallway, his mind swirling with conflicting emotions. He had just saved Lola's life, the woman who had once tried to have him killed. As he contemplated his next move, he felt a hand on his shoulder. It was his father, Kanu. Son, I heard what happened, Kanu said softly. You did a brave thing. Tunde nodded, still deep in thought. I couldn't let her die, Dad, but I don't know what to do now. Just then, Bessie arrived, out of breath from rushing to the hospital. Tunde, are you okay? She asked, hugging him tightly. Tunde looked at his parents, feeling a surge of love and gratitude. I'm fine, Mom, but I think it's time we faced our past. The next day, Tunde entered Lola's hospital room. Mr. Olu was there too, looking older and worn. When they saw Tunde, both of their faces filled with shame and regret. Tunde, Mr. Olu began, his voice cracking, we don't deserve your kindness after what we did. Tunde took a deep breath. You're right, you don't. But holding on to anger and resentment won't help any of us move forward. Lola reached out her hand weakly. We raised you for years, Tunde. We loved you. But our fear and selfishness blinded us in the end. Can you ever forgive us? Tunde was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You did give me a good life for many years, and yes, I think I can forgive you. But it will take time to rebuild trust." Just then, Bessie and Kanu entered the room. The atmosphere tensed immediately. Tunde looked at all of them. "I have two sets of parents. Both have made mistakes, but both have also shown love. I think it's time we all tried to come together." Over the next few weeks, as Lola recovered, the two families began the difficult process of reconciliation. There were tears, heated arguments, and painful confessions. But slowly, understanding and forgiveness began to grow. Months later, at Tunde's suggestion, they all gathered for a family dinner. As they sat around the table, Tunde raised his glass. "To family," he said, "not just by blood, but by choice and forgiveness." Bessie smiled at Lola. "Thank you for giving my son a good life when I couldn't." Lola nodded, tears in her eyes. "And thank you for raising such a compassionate man." Mr. Olu looked at Kanu. "We've all made mistakes, but Tunde has shown us the power of forgiveness." Kanu agreed. "We're all his parents in different ways. Let's focus on being there for him now." As the evening went on, laughter and conversation flowed more easily. It wasn't perfect, and there was still healing to be done. But Tunde looked around the table, feeling a sense of peace. He had two mothers, two fathers, and a family that, despite its complicated past, was finally coming together. Bessie decided it was time to face her past. She told Tunde and Kanu, "I want to visit my village to see my parents." Tunde was surprised. "You have parents? My grandparents are still alive?" Bessie nodded. "Yes, but I haven't seen them since I ran away as a teenager." They traveled to the village together. As they approached a small house, an old couple sat outside. Bessie's voice trembled. "Mom? Dad?" The old woman squinted, then gasped. "Bessie, is that you, my child?" Tears flowed as Bessie hugged her parents. "I'm so sorry I ran away," she sobbed. Her father patted her back. "We've missed you so much. We're just happy you're home." Bessie introduced Tunde and Kanu. "This is your grandson, Tunde, and my husband, Kanu." Tunde stepped forward nervously. "Hello, I'm glad to finally meet you." His grandmother hugged him tightly. "Oh, look at you. Such a handsome young man." They spent the day sharing stories, laughing and crying. Tunde learned about his family's history and felt a new sense of belonging. As they prepared to leave, Tunde's grandfather said, "You must visit more often. We want to know our grandson better." Tunde smiled. "I'd like that very much." Tunde felt content. He had two sets of parents who loved him, and now grandparents too. "You know," he said to Bessie and Kanu, "I think our family's finally complete." Bessie squeezed his hand. "Yes, it is, and we're all so proud of you, Tunde." From that day on, Tunde's life was filled with the love of his extended family. The past hurts were healed, and they all looked forward to a happy future together. This story teaches us that family isn't just about blood relations or legal documents. It's about love, care, and doing what's best for each other. It encourages us to stand up for what's right, even when the odds seem stacked against us, and reminds us that with persistence and truth on our side, we can overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Love and truth are powerful forces that can overcome even the toughest challenges. It teaches us that we should never give up on our family, no matter how difficult things might seem. The story also shows us that money and power don't make a family. Love, care, and honesty do. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story and its message, please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss out on more great stories like this one.